ThinkTech Friday, the show about science, technology, and things that matter. I'm your host, Attila Seress. Today, our topic of discussion is the state of solar here in Hawaii. And joining us today is Mike Bennis from Hawaiian Islands Solar. His company installs photovoltaic systems, or PV for short. It's those things you see on rooftops, on businesses and residences across our fine state. And he's here to offer his expertise in the industry and discuss the challenges and future of what energy harvested from the sun could mean to you and me. Thank you for joining us in the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I wanted to start off with this really interesting article about the Solar Insider News. And in it, it goes through about some of the benchmarks that Hawaii is set to meet by 2030, specifically that we are set to get most of our energy, or not most, but 40% of our power from renewable sources throughout the state. And in fact, the Big Island today already gets 44% of their power. So they're on track, but we're not there yet. And just about, it really mentions that we're kind of approaching this red line being the maximum that Hawaiian Electric can accept in terms of solar power. And how since 2007, every single year, the number of solar installations have doubled. Yep. I see more solar company advertisements on the TV and on the radio. I see lots and lots of small solar companies popping up. And, you know, this seems like it's really changing the state. We see a lot of jobs being created and we see a lot of work going in.
Yes.
But you know, we're approaching that red line. And I think there's some new legislation that's coming in on January 1st. That's maybe meant to address that issue. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's changing here on January 1st and what this red line means to everyone?
Okay, yeah. Well, with January 1st, there are temporary tax rules that are going to go into effect. They were put forth by DOTAX, and they're going to, apparently unintentionally, DOTAX would say that it's unintentional. They're going to actually reduce the amount of credit dollars paid out to folks who are installing solar photovoltaic systems on their homes and or businesses and, you know, multiple dwelling residences, so say condo buildings with multiple apartments.
Right.
So everyone's going to be affected by the changes. They do take effect January 1st. And in a nutshell, the state tax credit this year is 35%. So 35% of the cost of a photovoltaic system is going to be coming back in terms of tax credit dollars, and it has a cap. And what they're doing is they're changing the rules for where the cap is. You know, at what point does your system or systems hit that cap, and they're reducing it. So for larger systems, it'll have an effect where someone who this year was able to claim, say 35% state tax credit, will next year be only be able to claim, say, 20% or 22%, just because of butting up against the cap.
And I see this as really a problem because it shows here that in this article that $173.8 million was lost in revenue in 2012. Is the state trying to recoup some of that? Or are they trying to reduce the amount of loss that they have to that they would otherwise be getting with tax credits?
It's quite possible that they're looking at the tax credit as a sort of a money suck. You know, this is where they're like, okay, well, we have to allocate money to schools. We have to allocate money to, you know, to other important things, roads and things that, you know, the homeless services, all sorts of things that, you know, I'm sure everybody's vying for the politicians' attention of where to allocate money. And obviously there's a limited amount of it. So they're looking at solar tax credits potentially being too large of
too much. So they're giving out too much money to all these guys. And so once that changes, it sounds to me like I'm going to be seeing less commercials on TV for solar. I'm going to be seeing less solar installations going up. And they're reeling that all back. And yet my electricity bill seems to be going up every single time. I mean, that's
interesting.
That's the one thing I can't seem to understand. See, because when you put up the solar panels on your home or on a business, right? You would think that that's free energy that you're harvesting, and you're giving back to HECO, right? So that they can give it to other people who need it. You know, it's like you're feeding the homeless, right? So you pick up that free energy, you give it out, and if you're putting in all these great solar panels, I don't think HECO is losing money here. It sounds to me like that maybe that redistribution is the challenge. And And if you're reducing the number of panels that are going in, I mean, consistently every year. I remember 2 years ago they said the HECO announced that it's going to go up 40% in 2012. Sure enough, we were very close to that number for 2012, and then they recently announced that for 2013 it's going to be the same thing. So 40% increase. That seems like any business that has a 40% increase in cost is going to have to pick that up with a 40% increase in revenues, right? So that makes sense to me. But if now we're going to be cutting down the number of solar panels, and we're going to be cutting down that income, is it going to go up more than 40%? Are we expected to pay $1,000 electricity bills? Is that unrealistic?
Well, so the future electric bill rate, HECO puts out statements about why it is that they're increasing their rate, and the last one I heard was that the last big increase in the rate was mostly due to the price of oil, because currently we get, I believe it's about 78% of our electricity on Oahu is generated from oil, burning oil, and I think another 16-17% from burning coal. So there's about a 4 or 5% left over that we get from other sources, such as burning trash, biomass, things like that. So,
really?
So we're still probably on Oahu. We're still about 95% based in fossil fuels in terms of the electricity that HECO is generating. Now, more and more electricity is coming on the grid from independent generation sources. If you were to put a photovoltaic system on your rooftop, that's electricity that HECO doesn't have to generate, but it doesn't reduce the cost per kilowatt hour for the remaining kilowatt hours that they do have to generate, because they're still generating through oil, mostly through burning oil.
So it takes some of the responsibility off of their hands, but their costs are still fixed, right? Is that what you're...
Their costs are still largely tied to the price of a barrel of oil, because that's largely how they're producing their electricity. One really interesting thing that happened not too long ago in the last couple of years is HECO was allowed to decouple. And
what does that mean?
What that means, it's happened in about half the states in the country already, and it's a type of payment scheme, I guess you could call it.
Scheme.
Let's not use the word scheme. It switches the balance. It switches the whole equation. It turns it upside down, because normally an electric utility, if it's not decoupled, if it's coupled, what that's referring to is that the electric rates that they charge, the revenue that they make, is coupled to the amount of energy that they sell. So the more kilowatt hours of energy they sell, the more revenue they bring in. And so then their incentive as a business, a for-profit business, is to bring in more revenue, make more profit, and therefore to do that they would need to sell more electricity. So that's not necessarily good if you're looking from the perspective of, we want energy efficiency, we want less electricity consumption, we want to lower our electricity consumption, we want to reduce the energy.
So it sounds to me kind of like so HECO needs to make more money, which is understandable. They're a for-profit company, and they were coupled, meaning so that they could only charge as much as they sold, right? But now they can sell less and charge more. Is that what the decoupling means? Is that the result?
It's a temporary result.
Temporary, okay.
But it might not necessarily. This is exactly how it works. So by being decoupled, they can now request a certain rate and a certain amount of revenue from the Public Utility Commission, and the Public Utility Commission will review it and grant them that type of revenue stream that they're asking for, regardless of how much electricity they sell. So now there's no longer this incentive on HECO's part to try to sell as much electricity as possible. Now they actually might be able to create a larger profit for themselves and their shareholders by selling less electricity. So this is actually potentially a very good thing. So they now have the incentive to try to get their electric users and customers to try to be more conservative. Because you mentioned earlier the goal, the 2030 goal of it's the clean energy goal in the state of Hawaii. It's actually an overall 70% reduction in fossil fuel usage, and it's supposed to come 40% from just the production of renewable energy, and 30% is supposed to come from energy efficiency. So decoupling the utility is supposed to actually help us get there by encouraging energy efficiency and letting the electric company actually get behind the goal and to encourage energy efficiency itself.
Is that energy efficiency as in from the individual, such as using different types of light bulbs or turning off your lights at certain times or using the air conditioner less? Is that the kind of energy efficiency they're talking about, or is it more streamlining the actual infrastructure itself?
It's talking about that type of energy efficiency that you just brought up, and probably one of the biggest things that people can do to make their home energy efficient is to get a solar water heating system. That's actually a form of energy efficiency.
Really?
Because the electric water heater is one of the largest users of electricity of any appliance or thing in the house, usually second to air conditioning. So by switching from an electric water heater to a solar water heater, you cut out about 90% of the cost of heating water, and therefore you just made your home a lot more energy efficient.
Yeah, I actually have a solar water heater, and it is, I mean, I gotta be honest, it looks like something that it's a giant fish tank. Somebody took a radiator, a fish tank motor, a little tiny solar panel.
When did you get your solar water heater?
This is a few years ago, but I mean,
oh, wow.
it looks like it was completely jerry-rigged together by some plumbers,
Oh, no.
but it works fantastic, and it's
good.
totally cut down my electricity bill. So I totally get it. And also, I know that you can even go to, Home Depot or Lowe's or City Mill and pick up a energy efficient ceiling fan. And that
yes.
makes a huge difference
Huge
too.
difference. And it uses much less electricity than air conditioner would.
Really interesting. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back. We're talking with Mike Bennett from Hawaiian Islands Solar. I'm your host, Attila Seress, for ThinkTech Friday. Stay tuned. This is ThinkTech. We're live and we're on AM 760 KGU. I'm your host, Attila Seress, and we're here with Mike Bennett from Hawaiian Islands Solar, talking about the state of solar in Hawaii. When we last left the conversation, we were talking about this new article that came out where we're approaching this red line at the end of the year here, January 1st. The tax credits are going to be changing, and if you have any questions for Mike about these tax credits, or you're interested in solar in general and would like to join the conversation, give us a call at 296-5467, or you can shoot me an email here directly at support, that's SUPPORT, at soshawaii.com. Well, we're talking about what this could mean for solar companies and for jobs. It sounds to me like we're going to be losing some jobs here in 2013 due to this new legislation. Is that a realistic assessment, or is somehow the industry going to shift or change to a different model so that they can continue operating and generating revenue?
I think that's a pretty realistic assessment.
Really?
Working for a solar company myself, I can see that we are going to be laying off a lot of people, and
hopefully they're not listening.
Yeah, I'm not going to name names, but yeah, and I think that that's the same across the board. There's probably about 200 solar companies just in the state of Hawaii, and I think it affects all of us very similarly. I don't know if these were necessarily meant to be the effects. Obviously nobody's trying to kill jobs. The solar industry over the last few years, you mentioned the explosive growth in the industry. It's been growing about doubling in size every year for the past 5 years. So as anybody that's driving around, you can just look around. You just see more solar panels and photovoltaic panels on rooftops.
But I mean, can't the industry change a little bit? I know that there's that big mainland company, Solar City. It's Elon Musk's brainchild, and it talks about leasing, so you can lease solar panels. And I mean, can't the industry change to solar service? Because I got to be honest, my little solar water system, I think it needs a little bit of service after a few years, only because it's just we have the sun and the pipes start to get a little frail and a little foam around it starts to crack.
Insulation starts to crack, right?
Yeah.
It's exposed to UV. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, any one of these contractors that does solar water heating can provide services. And in fact, there was a period in the past, 1985, the tax credits went from being really, really good, about 50%, and into being quite meager, about 10%. And
so we're at 35% now. So they're even better in 1985?
Well, the total tax credit between federal and state was 50%. Now we've been having a real boom. It was 65% when you combine federal and state.
Oh, wow.
But now it's still 65%. It's the only thing that's really changed is the cap. And I think what you're seeing is an overreaction to the news. Kind of in the same way that, stock prices tend to overreact to news. Oh no, some company had better than average quarterly estimated earnings. Oh, price goes way up, then it goes way down and just back to reality. That's kind of what's happening here.
I don't know what you're talking about. Facebook.
So in the solar industry, I think that there's a lot of articles coming out, and people are kind of interpreting this change in the tax credit. They're hearing a buzz. They're seeing that maybe it's changing, and it's changing for the worse. And a lot of people might be assuming that it's really doomsday in terms of solar tax credits, and boy, they should have gotten their system, and if they didn't, it's too late. But that's really not the case. It's actually a pretty minor change, and I think that even though we have to now have to combat that change, we have to do a lot of PR, and we have to re-educate the public into how the tax credits are going to work in 2013. They're actually still very good. The solar water heating tax credits are exactly the same. The photovoltaic tax credit, a percentage on the federal government is exactly the same, and on the state government it's exactly the same, just the cap is changing. So there might be a little bit of a tendency towards maybe smaller system installations, or spreading out your installation across a couple years, which is actually not a bad idea to begin with. If you've got a $200 electric bill, why not just eliminate $100 of it? See how the technology develops before you add on the second half. Maybe you might get a little bit of a nicer system for that second half. Maybe it'll be cheaper. Maybe you'll have a little better technology, because the technology is evolving, and so smaller systems. I would say systems under $14,285 for a residential system or less, they're going to be
15 grand. Wow.
Yeah, 15 grand or less. Those are going to be completely unaffected by these tax credit changes.
Really?
And systems that are larger than that, if you do want to do like a big system all at once, you can. Instead of getting back 35% from the state, you might get back anywhere from 20 to 25%. And instead of your return on investment, means your money you outlay coming right back to you in electric bill savings, taking 4 years or 5 years, now it's going to take 5 years or 6 years.
Really?
System's going to last 30 to 40 years, so that extra year of return on investment is not going to be the end of the world. So,
well, guess what? We actually got a question from an email. This is from Kathy. She asks, where does the oil, or it says, how does oil produce electricity? So I think we were talking about that in the first segment of the show, where we were talking about how, 40% of our electricity comes from, on the island, comes from oil, and 30% from coal. Was that the right numbers?
I believe it's about 77 to 78% comes from burning oil, and then another 17 or so percent comes from burning coal.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, that email address is support@soshawaii.com. That's SUPPORT. Thank you. So go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, so I believe the way it works is just a general. It's just the burning process is gonna power generators.
Got it.
And I actually don't know too much about exactly how HECO creates it. They do maintain that they actually burn oil about as cleanly as possible.
Well, maybe we can get someone from HECO to call in. If someone would like to, our number is 296-5467. Give us a call and join the conversation. So it sounds to me like a typical oil burning plants. I think they even have them at Campbell Industrial. I see like the fire from far away driving into Kapolei. The fire is up in the air. So that sounds to me like that's where the energy generation is coming from.
Yes.
Thank you for your email, Kathy. Hopefully we've answered it pretty well. Now going back to what we were talking about, so I understand the solar companies are gonna change, but this energy that's being made, on the rooftops, where does it go? Is it stored in I don't know, dolphins? Where does the energy go?
Probably dolphins. I guess. Well,
2 dolphins per kilowatt. Is that the?
That's the breakdown.
Yeah.
Depends on the sunshine zone, how many dolphins. But yeah,
there you go.
Generally when the sun hits the panels, it creates DC electricity.
DC.
That flows through inverters, which will change it to AC electricity or
direct current. So I know a little bit about this. So the direct current is kind of like the electricity in your car. It's a direct current. It's
or a battery. Yes.
In a battery, exactly. It's like a lower voltage. So it's only 12 volts or 48 volts, or what do you guys use?
Well, you can use it can be all different kinds of
different
voltages.
Volts.
It's just it's not going to be compatible with your appliances in your home. It's not going to be compatible with the grid, because that's pretty much back in the day when it was the big fight between Tesla and Edison. AC electricity won out, and we decided to make the whole grid AC.
Right, and that's what I can't understand is because AC is supposed to be more efficient. It can go longer distances. I mean, Edison was cooking elephants to show how scary AC was. Yet DC required a power plant at every block practically. So why are we still using DC at all?
Well, DC, you can transmit, I think, really high voltages. It's maybe a little easier for long distance high voltage transfer without so much loss, I think, is one of the advantages.
Well, I thought AC, you had that long distance, you wouldn't lose it because it's jumping back and forth, right? Even if you plug a voltmeter into your electricity socket, you can see the AC bouncing back and forth, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it goes up and up and down, and then what it is it's one of the benefits is that it's kind of both ways. You can put it onto the grid, take it from the grid. So actually, the way the solar system works is it's going to produce that DC power, turn it to AC power, and send it right to your electric meter. And then from there, electricity just finds the path of least resistance. So if you have load in your house, if you turn on a lamp and that lamp wants electricity, that's where the electricity is going to go. But if you've shut everything down and the electricity there's nowhere for it to go into the house, there's nothing that's demanding it, it'll just flow from your meter right onto the electric grid instead.
And then where's it go? Dolphins? Dolphins.
One of the many things.
Whales.
It'll probably go to this Sea Life Park and power the dolphin aquarium.
There you go.
But it'll go wherever it's needed because it always just follows the path of least resistance. So the important thing is that as it leaves your house, it spins your meter backwards. So you as the customer generating the electricity are going to get credit for your production. Whether you happen to need it at the time, therefore you're not going to have to buy it from HECO, you just produced it yourself on your own rooftop, or if you don't need it at the time, it'll flow out onto the grid, it'll get used somewhere else, it'll join the electricity on the grid to be used, and as it leaves your house, you'll get a credit. You'll get a retail rate credit. So every kilowatt hour of electricity you produce that gets to be used somewhere else, you benefit.
Okay. So it is the redistribution of wealth. That's very interesting. Okay, so if we're redistributing all this wealth, we already talked about why the cost of electricity is going up, but this redistribution, we're talking about a red line, and I know we talked about that a little bit in the first segment. And hi. Oh, Rich. Well,
Hi.
Rich, thank you for calling. I appreciate the call. What can we do for you? Mike, how would you answer that?
Well, I'll try to give an impartial answer.
Okay. What should you look for from a solar contractor?
I think experience is very important for two reasons. One is that
So number of years in business.
number of years in business, number of installations. And one reason is that if you were to go to an eye surgeon, get LASIK surgery, you're not going to just go to the cheapest one. You're going to go to the one that's done X amount of surgeries, and you can kind of trust them with your eye. Same thing with your house. A solar company is going to be drilling holes in your roof, and that's a scary thought for somebody whose house costs $600,000 or $1 million. So, an experienced contractor is going to have the know-how. They're going to be familiar with the industry best practices. They've done it many, many times, and so it's a little bit. Are
there certifications they can ask for?
Well, you definitely want them to be licensed. And one of the biggest certifications that's, for better or worse, that's coming around in the industry is the NABCEP certification. It's kind of funny. The
NAP?
Yeah, NAB. It's a North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, and they never really set out to be like the certification for the industry. It just sort of happened. So a NABCEP certification, not quite yet. It's not really there yet, but you'll probably see it over the next few years that companies are going to be trying to acquire the NABCEP certification. Right now, it's more you want to be licensed. You want to go with a licensed contractor. The other thing is, in terms of years of experience, is if you choose a company that's popped up in the last year, about 80% of new businesses will fail, and that's just a general statistic across the board.
I think Rich has a good question though. Like, what if some guy shows up? He's got a lot of experience. It's a new company. Why not choose them and get the solar installed for less?
Well, generally, you're going to get really similar pricing across the board in the solar industry because, as I mentioned, there's about 200 companies. So the competition's pretty near, the more competitors you have, the further away you go from monopoly to distributed, large competition pool, the more the prices are going to just stabilize closer and closer to about as low as the companies are willing to go. So, and that's kind of what you're seeing in the solar industry. You got a whole lot of companies competing against each other for your business. So, there's not too, there are some outliers that are, not bad to get a
Mm-hmm.
few quotes because there are some people that are more or less expensive, but generally it's
Hey, Rich,
price is pretty.
is that what you've seen in your is that what you've seen when you've watched these solar company commercials? Have you gotten any quotes? Are they all kind of similar? No, and I'm in the
Yes.
same boat as you, Rich. I did the solar water first with the intent of doing this the photovoltaic, and yeah, any way you look at it, you got holes in your roof. It needs to be maintained, and if someone does a poor job, they're going to tell all their neighbors, and next thing you know, they're going to be out of business. So I think maybe the market is going to decide who's going to be the leaders here, and I think Mike, because you're in the industry, I can't mention your competition, but I see a lot of competition on the TV these days, and a lot of them are from well-established companies. So how's a little guy going to compete against something like that?
There's two ways to compete. I think you can compete on price, and then you can compete on quality. And I think, especially in Hawaii, word of mouth is very powerful. So,
But how about like technology? Is there any one solar company that's going to have better panels where I don't need to buy as many panels as I would with an older technology? Because I mean, in my industry, that is an advantage. Coming in with new, different technology that everyone else has, that makes a huge difference. And in solar, I'm guessing it's the same thing, right?
yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I kind of look at it. There's three main categories of photovoltaic modules.
We're back, we're live, and you're listening to ThinkTech Friday, discussing the state of solar here in Hawaii. I'm your host, Attila Seress. With me is Mike Bennis from Hawaiian Islands Solar. And before we jump back into it, we do have a few announcements. Today at the Japanese Cultural Center is the Holiday Science and Tech Fair. Anyone looking for a job who's a tech person, listen up. Come on down. It's the 13th year of the Holiday Science and Tech Fair, and it's promoting the Hawaii tech industry. And I believe that the event is hoping to attract experts and students coming home for the holidays, promoting cutting-edge technology companies in Hawaii in IT, software information technology, medical IT, building and design, renewable energy, which is what we're talking about, education, and more. There's going to be a lot of companies there, such as OceanIT, Referentia Systems, High Health Systems, Diagnostic Labs, Team Praxis, Data House, Hawaiian Airlines, Hawaiian Tel, Navitech, SOS Tech Solutions, which is my company, and many more. The event is free to the public, and poo-poos start at 6, and I think you know what that means. That means that there's food, but you got to get there on time. Bring your resumes for face-to-face interviews, and again, it's at the Japanese Cultural Center from 5 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. today, and there is an opportunity for networking at the event as well. Also, we have Jay Fidel to give some more announcements on some upcoming events. Jay, go ahead.
Thank you, Attila. By the way, we'll be there at the Science and Tech Fair, which starts in 20 minutes.
We're fast. We're fast.
We'll be there. We'll be there. We're going to take pictures of it. We're bringing our cameras and our camera people. We're going to make an OC16 movie about it, which we'll show in a couple of weeks, about who demonstrates what, and a little of the networking, interviewing some of the people, including you, Attila.
Yay!
All right, then, I want to say you guys are doing a great discussion about energy, and the Energy Policy Forum, the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, is presenting its 9th annual legislative briefing in the Capitol Auditorium on January 10th at 10 a.m. It's going to cover some very interesting and somewhat controversial issues, like the challenges of leadership in energy, like the mix of what the pie is, what's PV, what's wind, what's geothermal, how do you mix them all up? And we're going to talk about the financial aspects of that, the fiscal aspects of that. How much should the legislature allocate to this? What kind of tax credits should we have? The very issues you guys started discussing. Anyway, that's January 10th, 10 a.m. in the Hawaii State Legislative Building, the Capitol Auditorium. You'll want to see details. It's hawaiienergypolicy.org. On January 24th, ThinkTech collaborates through the year with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. And our luncheons for 2013 are going to resume at the Plaza Club at 11:30 on the 4th Thursday of each month. And we're going to start out on January 24th with the discussion of, with awards. And we're going to give the Entrepreneur of the Year awards, We're going to give the Deal of the Year awards. These are secret. I cannot discuss this with you at all, Attila, but thanks for asking. If anybody is interested in coming, these are great events. Lots of people come down, lots of networking, really get in touch. Check out hvca.org. Thanks, Attila. Now back to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jay. Well, looks like we have some exciting things coming up next year, and hopefully our listeners will attend. Now we're going to move on to the fun section of our show where we talk about the problems, challenges, and the overall dark side of photovoltaic and solar water. Now, for me, I know that if we have a few cloudy days, suddenly my hot water is not so hot. It's kind of lukewarm, maybe tap water kind of coldness. So it seems to me that, as great as this technology sounds, that we're harvesting all this free stuff coming from the sky, and it's changing our bills, and it's making things less expensive for us, and we're all high tech here. There's some problems here, and I wrote down a few on my list here, and of course, if you have a cloudy day, you're not going to get that hot water. If you have holes in your roof, you're going to get leaks. What do we do here? Holes in my roof, oh my, is what's on my notes here. This is an oh my point.
Okay.
What do we do with all these holes in my roof? If I have 30 panels on my roof, and I have how many holes in my roof per panel, would you say?
Usually about one per panel for photovoltaic panels, maybe 1.25.
One hole, or 4 holes to hold them up. How's that work?
Well, for water heating panels, it's a little different. You're probably going to have on average 3 to 4 holes per panel, depending on how many panels you have for solar water heating. If you just have one water heating panel, you're going to have 4 holes. If you have 2, you're going to probably have 6 holes total, 3 per panel. And usually you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 solar water heating panels. So I'll just kind of talk about the no hot water one first, because that's particularly viscerally unpleasant. So,
yeah, of course. Especially in the morning.
Yeah. So the way solar watering systems work these days, and if they're set properly, you shouldn't have issues with this. They're hybrid systems. So solar is going to be able to heat your water to a nice hot temperature about 90% of the time. But you're going to have rainy days, and you're going to have times when you use a lot of hot water at night, and then the next morning the sun hasn't come up yet. That's where you have the electric backup timer. So no solar watering system should really be installed as a strictly solar water heating system. It should have the electric backup there. On average, statistically, you're only going to use it 10% of the time, so you're still going to save 90% of the cost of heating water, but it's there when you need it. And the electric backup timer, if set correctly, is set to your lifestyle. So let's say you get up at, you're an early bird and you get up at 5 a.m. to take a shower and it's still dark. You're probably going to want your timer to be set from about 4:30, maybe even 4 o'clock in the morning to come on. What it's going to do is it's going to check the temperature of your water, and if the water's still not hot from the day before, and a lot of times it may be, the water tank may lose 10, 15 degrees overnight, but the solar can make the water 140, 145 degrees and still be 130 degrees in the morning. But if you use a lot of hot water the night before, and just so happens that your timer electric kind of wakes up in the morning at 4:30 and detects a temperature of only 100 degrees, that kind of lukewarm water you were talking about that nobody wants to shower in,
right,
it'll boost the temperature up to the nice comfortable level. And it'll do it automatically, so you don't have to be flipping switches.
See, because I set my dishwasher to come on at 2 in the morning because I don't want to listen to it at nighttime, so that could be cutting into my morning shower routine. So I didn't think of that. So it's the okay, because I do know that one of the advantages of having that solar water is that we're using it for a dishwasher, using it for a washing machine, not just showers, bathtubs for the kids, right? The kids need some warm water, otherwise you're gonna hear it. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a caller now. I'm sorry. What was your name? Oh, Susan. Hi, Susan from Honolulu. How are you? Sure. Is there a question that we can answer? A good or bad thing? Oh, so let me see if I understand right. So I believe what she's asking is, are you doing the right thing? Are you buying the right equipment? Are you buying the right configuration? Or are you buying into old technology that's doomed to break down? Does that sound right, Susan? All right, perfect. Well, Mike, how do you answer that? I mean, we're still buying cars that run on a combustion engine. Last I checked, that's not new technology either. But we've made improvements over the years. So maybe is there like a stable compound or some stable technology that exists in all solar panels that no matter what you do is not going to change?
Okay, so let's see. Well, solar water heating and photovoltaic are two different technologies. So maybe we should talk about solar water heating. It's a very simple technology. It's actually just an extension of your plumbing.
Right. Susan, were you asking about photovoltaic or solar water? I think we've lost her. Let's assume it's photovoltaic.
Let's assume.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, charging your portable devices. So that would definitely be PV. Yeah, well, we're talking about your whole home. What about your television or your computer or your? There you go.
Yeah.
But your iPad needs a router and it needs that internet somehow. So it's true. We do need some way to. Best way to maximize.
Well, usually 99.99% of the systems that are being installed in Hawaii are rooftop systems, and they feed the electricity into your electric meter. And they don't discriminate between appliances. So the system will produce however much electricity you want it to, and the company that can give you a free quote can give you a price and a quote for that much electricity production. And then, so if let's say you were only interested in producing as much electricity as you need to power your router and charging small appliances, if that's all you wanted to do is eliminate that load from your
So
eco
you get the
bill.
shoe that fits your footprint of energy consumption. By the way, if you'd like to join the conversation, our phone number is 296-5467. Sorry, I had to put that out there, Susan. So does that make sense that you get the system that matches your consumption of energy, and then move forward from there? Hello? Well, I'm not sure if we lost her. Hopefully, Susan, yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay. Well, it sounds to
I'm
me.
sorry, what are you worried? The environment? Okay, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that's a really where I come from too. It's more of an environmental concern. I think solar, wind, those are two really great clean renewable energy sources. And right now in Hawaii, for talking about things that you would power in your house, wind is not quite there in terms of residential applications. Return on investment isn't there, so the market isn't there. So, but solar is there, and it's just every bit as renewable and clean as wind. And best place to start really would be to do an online search, open the still usually Yellow Pages still. You could open the Yellow Pages, and you could certainly give us a call at 261-9740. We can, for free,
Check it out, yeah.
check it out for
So
you.
talk to your local solar contractor, kind of like taking it down to your mechanic and take your bill down there and see what they can cut off out of there.
Yeah, because the
That makes
information's free, and you get a good idea of whether it's a good fit for you or not in terms of, or they can at least guide you in the right direction. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Susan, for your question. We really appreciate it. And we're going to get back to over here to some more challenges of photovoltaic systems. So one of the things I've heard about, and we're going back to these troubles. We went over the roof holes, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the issues with photovoltaic and solar systems in general when we get back from the break. This is your host, Attila Seress, for ThinkTech Friday, discussing the state of solar here in Hawaii. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more after the break. We're back, we're live, and you're listening to ThinkTech Friday, discussing the state of solar here in Hawaii. I'm your host, Attila Seress. We're talking about solar, and we're talking about some of the problems, challenges, the ways to set up your solar system correctly, different configurations that you can get for your home. So we've addressed a lot of these different topics, and now we wanted to talk about the future. So obviously things change on January 1st, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. But we're also approaching that red line. Where is all this electricity going to go? How can we look at other countries to see if maybe we can learn something from them? Give us a call. We only have a few minutes left at 296-5467. We have a caller on the line. Hello, can I have your name, please? Well, I think I think I can answer that one for sure. As I think any technology from 30 years ago is dated. So yeah. I think
it's a really interesting point because, so maybe I'll just answer the first question first.
Sure.
I would kind of break the solar panels, or modules as they're technically called, down into three categories. And there are, in terms of brands and models, there are hundreds. So they're not all the same, but they're all incredibly, incredibly similar. I think the three big distinctions are, there are companies, let me back up a little bit, and almost all panels come with a 25-year performance guarantee. So for 25 years, the panel's performance is guaranteed by the manufacturer.
Unless you get hail or a basketball.
In fact, even they're even guaranteed against hail of a certain size going at a
Really?
certain speed.
Oh, okay.
But at some point the manufacturer's specifications of what is covered expire. Like, they're not covered against, like you mentioned, somebody, if a tree falls on your roof and breaks your panels, that's more like your homeowner's insurance should kick in as opposed, but not the manufacturer warranty. But from manufacturer defect and from reasonable external conditions, they are covered by the manufacturer for a really long time. So what matters is the company that made the module going to be in business for 25 years?
Oh, I see.
Because if they are, great, you're covered. If they're not, then you're screwed, because if something goes wrong, there's no moving parts in a system, so it would really be kind of a fluke that something would go wrong and happen. But if
how long have these solar panel manufacturers been around? Have they been around 25 years or more? Can they offer?
Sure. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the biggest PV manufacturer in America is currently Solar World. In fact, they make 54% of all of the modules that are made in America. So 100% American-made panel. They dominate the American market. Quite a reputable company. You see a lot of Solar World panels being sold by contractors in Hawaii because it's a company that contractors feel comfortable with. They feel like this is a reliable partner for them because the contractors are going to get the calls. The contractors are going to be the ones that get the complaints and the service calls, and so they're going to want to partner with a company that they can turn around and at least that company will honor their manufacturer warranty for them, so the contractor's not stuck holding them.
And how long has Solar World been around?
It's been around since 1975, so it's
okay.
Quite a long time.
Long time. So they can offer that warranty pretty confidently. Okay.
And I would put that panel into the middle category. So as I mentioned, there's kind of three categories. There's the really expensive panels that are trying to offer high cell efficiency. And high cell efficiency is expensive. High cell efficiency, all it means that your panels will take up a little bit less space on your roof. So a typical cell efficiency for a panel is 15%. A high cell efficiency panel, the cell efficiency is going to be 18 or 19%. So that means it's going to take up maybe 20% less roof space.
Oh, so you get the same amount of energy coming out of a smaller panel.
Exactly.
Is that less holes too? Less holes in my roof?
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes. So 20% less holes, 20% less space, 20% less footprint on your roof.
And good.
I look at that as those panels they're disproportionately more expensive.
Oh, I see.
Because almost all of us have more than enough roof space for a moderate cell efficiency panel on our roof. So these high cell efficiency panels, which may save us 20% of the roof space, it's going to cost us more than 20% more. So
they're the Tiffany's of the solar world.
Yes.
And they're not the Ben K or whatever
Walmarts
else.
or what have you. Yeah. So. And then, of course, so you got the middle, the average cell efficiency panels, and then on the bottom end of the spectrum, you got the kind of the brands you might want to stay away from because they're brands that are just not reputable, and who knows if they'll be around.
Well, that has been an interesting conversation, and we still have lots more to talk about, but we've run out of time. Thank you, Mike, for coming on ThinkTech. I appreciate it. And
pleasure.
This is Attila Seress for ThinkTech Friday, broadcasting on KGU 760 AM. Thank you to our Chief Engineer, Jack Waters, Account Manager, Patrick Leonard. Our Board Operator is Leo Rodriguez. And thank you, the listener. Your ears are what fuel the show. We'll be back next Friday, but be sure to tune in Wednesday with Jay Fidel for more ThinkTech. Remember to appreciate life, do good to others, and have a great weekend. Aloha.